Okay, guys, making a video here. And this video is why, if you're a war gamer, should you stop playing whichever war game you're playing and start playing A Song of Ice and Fire? Why should you do that? The answers are many. One, okay, if you're playing Saga and Oathmark and you really love it, keep playing it because those are both amazingly good games. And no, you're not going to hear me talking a bunch of smack about Saga or Oathmark. Again, I love those games. They're good games. But let's compare to something a little bit bigger like, I don't know, Age of Sigmar or the Old World. Why would you want to not play those games and instead play A Song of Ice and Fire? Well, the first reason would just be money. You can get into a Song of Ice and Fire or the Game of Thrones game, whatever. I might use either nomenclature um, for under $100 and be done, right? All you got to do is go out and buy yourself whatever your favorite house is. Every house plays different. This is Greyjoy. Like Greyjoy have no cavalry. That's a thing with them. They have no cavalry. They're pirates. So they're really good at hit and run. They're really good at front loaded damage. They're not great at um, sustainability, let's say. You know, it's like when they hit hard, but can they take a hit? A lot of them can't. You know, that's just the way it is. If they go up against, you know, a really, let's say, tanky unit that can take a hit, they they do run the risk of just getting worn down. So that's Greyjoys, right? That's the army I picked. But all of the armies from the books and the TV shows are there. So if there's something you really like you were just a huge fan of the Lannisters or the Baratheons or the Targaryens or whatever, uh, you know, those armies all exist and you can 100% just go and pick up the starter set, and I kid you not, you're done. You've bought everything you need to play. It comes with all the dice you need to play. It comes with 2D terrain, which is super easy to make 3D if you want to. You could just easily put the 2D area terrain down, and then, like, if it's forest, just put a couple trees on top of the template, and that way everybody knows what the border of the woods are. Uh, they even sell on the Simon Games thing. They sell terrain for the game so that you can have 3D terrain. Um, but that is point one, that the miniatures are, the game itself is cheap to get into. Point two is the miniatures come pre-assembled in units of 12, and they look really good when they're painted. Like, let me try and show you. Let's see if I can get this to focus in, right? This is a magnetized stand of House Greyjoy troops that have been painted up in Greyjoy colors. These are actually the crew of the Victory. And, you know, they've got their banner and everything. And of course, in the game, I'll be taking one of these guys off and putting Victarion in the unit. This is his crew. He'll be the commander of the unit and the army, right? Now, compare that to Games Workshop, where a lot of the figures are really a pain in the butt to put together. You know, it's not like the old days when you could open up your Space Marines or your bag of works or whatever and just clip all the parts out and then just put them together however you want. You know, it's not like that. It's definitely a lot more monopose, which I mean, I guess makes the game easier for some people, but at the same time, it's kind of like, you know, did we really want monopose miniatures? Or did we want to be able to pose the miniatures however we wanted, you know? As Game Shop Workshop has went on, and I know this sounds like hypocritical since I'm talking about one of the advantages of this game is that it's monopose. Um, the problem is with Games Workshop, you're building monopose infantrymen out of 7 parts. But at the end of the day, you have to build them exactly the way they tell you to build them, or they're not going to work. And you're just going to be, sitting there wishing that you've done something a little different with your life. Prying miniatures apart so that you can, put them back together. 2, the rules simple, constantly looked at and updated to make sure that you don't run into any issues with any particular army just absolutely dominating the game. And to me that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm not quite so whatever about it as some people may be, but hey, that's okay. You know, if some people are super whatever about it, then good for them. Um, I mean, I still like Battle Skull Pass rules. I think those were the best rule set. I think that's like 6th edition, but maybe 5th, whatever it is. Um, so again, the rules available online for free, and easy to play. Easy to play. Uh, um, Whereas the main issue, this would be my main issue why I think A Song of Ice and Fire is way better than uh, Age of Sigmar or The Old World. One, I have to admit a personal bias. I have still currently about 5,000 points of Dark Elves. Or the Old World released without the Dark Elves being a supported army. So my army, the one I love the most in the Warhammer Fantasy universe, is not a supported army. Can you play it? Yes. There's a little PDF that gives you the bare minimum so you can play it. But that's trash. That's absolute trash. Why they would do that, God only knows. Um, and they've made a lot of changes to certain units that don't make any sense and they shouldn't have done. And I'll leave that at that. You can figure out what I'm talking about, you know, read between the lines. Whereas the units in A Song of Ice and Fire do make sense. Like if you're playing House Umber, which is Starks, I believe, they have an all-female unit. If you're, you can play Greyjoy, you can throw Asha and Carl into a unit together, which is actually a really good thing if you have the points to do. I would do it. So they're not like, it's like the female representation is there if you want it. You can always play the people from across the sea, Khal Drogo's bunch and all those other people. You can play Daenerys and have dragons, whatever, right? So it's a very open game as far as the types of figures you can play. Greyjoy, believe it or not, is actually a very limited house because, again, it's all infantry. It all works on certain precepts, and you either do those things very well or you get wrecked. So, it is what it is. Another thing, Simon Games, they I have had not a single problem picking up anything from Simon Games. No shortages, nothing is out of stock. Uh, Actually, I think one thing was, but still. And if you want to buy a unit for Simon Games, it comes with the 12 figures, which are generally in like 4 poses, 3 or 4, and sometimes 5 if there's a banner bear. And it also comes with the movement tray. It comes with a card that tells you everything you need to know about the unit, their attack, their movement. As units lose men in this game, their attack capability, generally speaking, degrades. So if this guy has 3 ranks, this unit, they roll 7 dice to attack and hit on 3 plus, right? But if they have 1 rank, they only get to roll 4 dice. And that's partial ranks count, right? I think. And then they have abilities like Dauntless, Martial Training, Divide the Spoils. They're a really good unit. I really like these guys, the Black Tide Chosen. But and they're easy to paint since they're all wearing like dove gray and teal, so they're pretty easy to paint. So everything, you have a lot of things available, and you have armies for whatever your style is. Let's say you want to play cavalry. You like cavalry, you want to play cavalry. There are a number of houses where you could easily build entire cavalry armies. Lannisters, Starks, believe it or not, Baratheon, Martell, actually pretty much every house except for Greyjoy, you could field armies. And one of the best cavalry units in the game is from House Bolton, which is its own house. Since this game is like, yeah, it's after they betrayed the Starks. So yeah. Yeah, the Bolton cavalry unit is insane. And it's not like it's unique, I don't think. So if you wanted to spend all of your points, and points values are right here on the card. So this unit costs 7 points. Most games are 40 to 50 points. The starter box comes with around 35 to 40 points. So, I mean, you're ready to play. Like I said, out like this starter box, just out of this starter box, you get like 5 units and a bunch of commanders and some non-combat units, plus terrain, dice, counters, everything in this box. So if you and a friend were to go down to your local hobby shop and decide, hey, I'm going to buy this house and you're going to buy that house, drop the $90 or $80 or whatever it is, they're different depending on the house, then you could literally rip the shrink wrap off of those box sets and sit down at a table, assuming your friendly local game store has those, and play a game like right out of the box. Another great thing is you got the War Council, which is a online army builder that also has all the rules and also uh, updates any like facts or anything automatically so that you don't have to worry about these things. You can just, be more concerned with um, playing the game than constantly worrying about whether something's going to get balanced or not. See, now negatives. Okay, first off, positives. Warhammer Fantasy is an amazing game, a game that I spent many years playing, but Warhammer the Old World is like a skeleton of that game. It's just not as good, right? And so, right off the bat, I'm not a huge fan of it. And like I said, I have to admit a certain amount of bias because they decided to basically disrespect my entire army and just say, hey, all those dark elves that live over in Nagaron? Yeah, they're not a thing. And that's just like, why? That's like, why? I mean, how can you add high elves and not add dark elves? That's just whatever, right? But again, I'm kind of ranting on something personal. So let's bring it all in real quick before this video gets way too long. Games Workshop. It's hard to get the miniatures. Like half the time, whatever you want is not available. It's exorbitantly expensive. And I know some people will be like, well, if you don't have the money, don't play. I agree. As somebody who has thousands of points of multiple armies, yeah, I agree. I'm not complaining necessarily. I'm just saying for your average gamer, the old world can be quite exorbitantly expensive, if they're not hardcore gamers like, I am and some of the other people that I know are, right? If they're not the kind of people who are willing to save up or who make enough money to just buy this stuff, then some of it is going to seem like, wow, that's expensive, right? But no, the thing that pisses me off the most is actually the unavailability of some of the frickin', like if I go into the local game store or if I go onto the Games Workshop webpage, I don't think that it's too much for me to expect to be able to give them money for the figures that I want, whether it's 30K, 40K, old world, whatever. And how they are constantly having supply chain issues, I think, I don't want to get all conspiracy theory here, but there's a part of me that sometimes wonders if they do that shit on purpose. If they're like, hey, let's make sure that these things are super hard to get, uh because, and I'm all like, okay, why? Why would you do that? I mean, the other option is they're just not smart enough to keep stuff in stock that they really should be, right? It's like these guys are ultra rich. Games Workshop is a rich game company. They make a ton of money, right? So are you telling me they can't call their factories in China and be like, hey, I want you to make like, you know, thousands of boxes of, Mark III Space Marines or whatever it is. Like, how is that a thing that they are not capable of doing? Doesn't that seem like strange? It does to me. It does to me. Meanwhile, Simon Games, you can either go to their website and buy their stuff, which is generally more expensive than if you buy it off of eBay or Amazon, but it's always there. It's like, Huh, I want a unit of something to stick with my army. It's there, no problem. As many as you want. Um, they have a phone app. I kid you not. Let's open my phone and see if I can show you. See, I don't know if Warhammer's done this yet because I don't know if they have. But let me see. I gotta go to my apps. War Council. Boom. Now I wish I could put this on my computer, right? But this is what it looks like. And you can keep track of your collection, what miniatures you own and don't own and maybe want. You can look at tactics cards and kind of figure out what kind of tactics cards you want for your army. You can read any facts or updates and the rule book. And then you can go to My Army and look at armies you have created. And so they're listed right there. There's the points values and all the units and everything. And in theory, though I haven't figured out how to do it yet, you're also supposedly able to export these or print these armies in PDF form. So, I mean, that's cool. And when you print them out, it has every unit, all the special rules, everything, right? Movement is easier. And so we want to save that. Okay. Right. And up here, you got all the different houses. There are currently 10 factions that you could play, just depending on what you want to do. Like I said, if you want a big cavalry army, you can play certain armies. If you just want a shit ton of like halberdiers and spearmen and archers, you can do that. But here's the other thing that's absolutely kind of cool about this game is the commander you choose for your army will completely change the flavor of your army. So, like in old school, uh, Warhammer Fantasy or, the old world, where you could have Hero Hammer and stuff like that. In this game, characters act more like force multipliers for units, and they have special abilities that they can give to friendly units, right? They never fight alone. They always fight in a unit. So a Greyjoy army led by Victarion will be totally different than a Greyjoy army led by Asha or Euron or Balin. You get what I'm saying? And that's true of every army. If you play Lannister and your army is led by Jaime Lannister, it's going to be totally different than if it were led by Tywin. Or if it were led by the Mountain, which is a thing you can do. As a matter of fact, my voice cracked. I'm going into puberty. You can make an entire Lannister army that's Clegane. The whole thing can be House Clegane, which is their banners are yellow with the hounds on them. Because you can buy the Mountain, comes with the starter set, and then you can get the Mountain that rides, which is the Mountain on horseback, and then you can get a bunch of the Mountain's raiders, which are cavalry units. And if you want to, you just build a whole army of that. 50 points, 40 points of just freaking the Mountain and his Raiders. And now, would that be a good army? I don't know. Having not tried it, I can't say, but what I'm telling you is it can be done. Or you could go for a more tactical army. You could play Tywin's brother, whatever, I forget his name. And then you could field a nice mixed army with like crossbowmen and halberdiers, maybe some cavalry to watch your flanks, some scouts and knights. And his special abilities will, of course, be drastically different than the special abilities of the other commanders that he would be fielded against. And that to me is like just super cool, It's just a really cool thing that you can have not only an army but multiple commanders, and I mean multiple, like 12 commanders, and these commanders all operate differently, and it matters drastically. What commanders you choose is like a big deal. On top of that, though, it's whatever you get non-combat units, and how you use your non-combat units can have a drastic effect on the battlefield. Your non-combat units represent units that are at court trying to, manipulate things to get your army more whatever. So it's like you could have Sansa, say you're playing Stark, you could have Sansa as your non-combat unit, and she has special power abilities that she can give your military. Like, like one thing that Greyjoy gets to do, they're almost kind of like the undead from 40K or from fantasy, is Greyjoy have multiple ways of regenerating lost casualties. Now, how they justify it is like, the men just get back up and keep fighting because they're such tough asses. But so that's kind of a thing they can do. Like every round, the Greyjoys can add 3 casualties back to a friendly unit. Pretty cool, right? You can also have like if you got Euron Greyjoy in the army, he's such a bastard that friendly units that get within a certain range of him can have to take panic tests and shit. Like he just scares them. But the negative is every time you activate the unit he's in, you have to kill one of your own men. So, so anyway, I just went on and on instead of wrapping it up. Like I said, let's wrap it up. I'm going to tell you a thing. A Song of Ice and Fire is a very interesting setting, whether you read the books or watched the TV shows, which I don't recommend either, really, except for a little bit of the lore, right? The houses are really cool. Whoever you are, there's a house for you. If you want to play a bunch of bastards that just raid up and down the coast and, pirate, they don't, we do not sow, then Greyjoy, right? A bunch of raiders and pirates. They're good at hitting fast and hard, grabbing the plunder and getting the hell out of Dodge, right? If you want to play heroic armies, well, believe it or not, Lannister can be heroic because Tywin's brother was a good guy. It just depends who you pick to lead your army, right? Whereas the Mountain is an absolute bastard. You've got the Martell, who are a somewhat kind of Iberian, Arabic, Andalus type looking army. the Targaryens, which are, dragons and barbarians on horseback, plus the Unsullied. Um, you've got your Baratheon, your typical, we got a bunch of knights and a bunch of men at arms, and you can play Stannis, you can play all of the different Baratheon commanders, and they all function differently. They all change the flow of the army, right? So yeah, that's the reason A Song of Ice and Fire is just better. You don't have to assemble figures. You don't even got to paint them, since every starter box, the figures come in the basic color of the house, and they're all different. So right here, I've got some Stark House Umber Raiders, right? Now, once they're painted, the metal will be metallic, of course, but all the cloth comparisons will be blood red, because that's the color that their house has. So they will stand out on the battlefield with the other Starks. They're mostly wearing gray and metal, and wolf hides. These guys are wearing bear hides, but their cloth on their horses is red. Just like if you make a Lannister army, but you have the mountain in your army, well, the mountain's going to be painted bright yellow. His, because that's the color of Clegane. So certain armies, not Greyjoy, you can have very colorful units. They're easy to paint. They look really good. The sculpts are really good. So yeah, there's just so many reasons to play this game. The main one being you can buy the starter box and you can be done. You and your friend. You can play, tons of games and scenarios, and they even give you like counters representing castle walls so that you can play sieges and all kinds of stuff, right? It's just really good. Really good. I really can't, well, I guess I can say a lot about how good it is, but I'm not going to, because this video has went longer than I intended it to. So I'm just going to leave it with, of the two games I'm talking about, Warhammer Old World or A Song of Ice and Fire, A Song of Ice and Fire is just definitely the better game. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's just the better game. It's more accessible. The rules are a lot better, a lot more balanced. And if something is super unbalanced, they fix it. The setting is actually really cool if you ignore R.R. Martin being a jackass sometimes. So yeah, I strongly two thumbs up for A Song of Ice and Fire. Whereas, I mean, an old world without dark elves, I can't even imagine it. So, and that's that. Now, if you want historic gaming, I would of course say Saga. And Oathmark's always a great game, but yeah, Song of Ice and Fire, it's just easy to get into. And like I said, you don't even have to paint your armies. Every house has a distinct color of plastic they're molded in. So, you show up with your Stark guys, they're that pale ice blue color. Your Greyjoys are teal, your Baratheon are yellow, your Lannisters are red. You get the idea. So there you go. That is this gamer's opinion. If you agree, well, agree. Thumbs it up, share it with your friends. If you disagree, tell me why you disagree, and that I'm a giant loser for liking A Song of Ice and Fire more than the old world. I'd love to hear it, because some of you may not know, but I used to be one of the biggest games workshop fanboys you can imagine. And a lot of these other games have broken that that thing. And now I'm like, I don't even care about Games Workshop that much anymore, you know? So there you go. 35 minutes. That's long enough. Peace and love, bros. I hope you liked the video. I hope I didn't ramble too much. But if it was educational for you at all, then I consider that a plus, a bonus. So there you go.